And now let's start putting the rocket engines, or whatever you want to call them, on here. So we're going to add some area here where the struts will come out to hold the rocket engines. So E to extrude this. I'm just going to scale it down because I want to make the strut smaller. And E to extrude, and just bring it, actually bring it just a little bit, just to give that sharp edge there as you're extruding out. And E to extrude again, and just bring it out. And it really is up to you how far you want to bring these out. I'm just going to stop right there and leave it at that. E to extrude, and maybe scale it. Or maybe not. That's alright, right there. Although if we go into top view, we can see that it's not going to fit, at least vertically here. So I'm just going to do a R, rotate, and try to get it just kind of where it needs to be. It's not going to be exact. Oh, I see what I got. I got that extra extrude there. Let me Control Z back. Undo is our friend. Okay. And go back into top view, 7, R, rotate. I still got one there. Okay. Now I can rotate and get it just kind of parallel there. And E to extrude again. Okay. Alright, so now we have the basic body of our ship. You can add some panels to it if you want to. It's probably better to add texture panels because, you know, with something subdivided like this, your face count is just going to go sky high each time you add your geometry. Right now I'm at 25,000 faces, which isn't too bad, but you can do it. I've done it both ways. You can do it through texturing or actually put the geometry in there, but let's just make one panel here just so you can see at least my method of making panels. So I'm going to make just make a square panel in this area right here. So just select all these faces. I'm going to E extrude this and scale it down. Make the panel about that big. Okay, and I'm going to do E extrude and bring it in just a little bit. E extrude again. And I'm going to bring it in a lot more, so it's a deeper cut there. E extrude again and scale, and this time I'm going to scale and size it, scale it down just a little bit, and E extrude again, and I'm going to bring it back up just a little bit. E extrude again, bring it back up, and then with this one you're bringing it back and try to get it even with the surface you started with. So kind of hard to tell here, but I think it's about right there. And just E extrude again to get that nice sharp cut. And if we look at this, you can see that it's not so much a porthole or a window or whatever, but it's more like a panel. And actually what I didn't do is I didn't make it as thin as what I wanted to make it. So let's see how hard it is to fix this. It shouldn't be too hard. I'm going to select all the vertices on the inside. Just want to make sure I didn't select something I didn't want to select. Okay, and should be just able to scale this up a little bit. There we go. So it's a little bit thinner there for the cut, and it's a little bit nicer. One thing that I didn't do that I should have done is let's see the best way to select these things. I can't even see them. There it is. Okay, the faces on the deep part of the cut here, I need to select those. Okay, can't see the ones on the side, but they should be selected. And I'm just going to go back to my material and assign the black to it. So you can see that looks a lot nicer once it's in there. It's actually a little bit too deep. You can't see all the black. And a lot of times what I'll do too is you can come in here and just select the sides around it and make that black too, just so you can get a better view of it. If we render it here, yeah, you can't see it in this render at all. But if you do this little trick, you can do a Control-Alt-0, and that will actually move your camera to what you're looking at in the viewport here. And I'm going to select this camera if I can get away with it. And I'm just going to move it around, GZZ to move out a little bit, render that. Yeah, so it doesn't look too bad. I mean, you can make it even more smaller and defined, but that's kind of a quick and dirty way to make a panel. It's not a cheap way because, like I said, I went from 25,000 to 32,000 faces when I did that. So you're eating up a lot of geometry. But it does look pretty nice when you do that sort of thing and add a lot of detail to your ship. I mean, you can go around and add all kinds of little panels and things into your ship that way. And you could even mix it with texture and have some differences there. Okay, so let's kind of start on our engines here. And what I'm going to do to make the engines, I'm going to do I'm in object mode now, and I'm just going to do a Shift A to add a cylinder. And let's see, what do we want for the cylinder? I'm just going to start with, like, I don't know. Well, let's go with 6 right now, because I'm going to subsurf this as well, and I don't need all that extra geometry. T out of that menu, and RX90 to rotate it 90 degrees. Let's go ahead and smooth it and add the subsurf. Okay, so let's S-scale it a little bit, kind of move it into position. Something like that. Okay. And the reason I'm adding the subsurface, I mean, you don't have to do it to begin with, but I kind of like to see what the end result's going to be. If your computer can handle it, then it's okay to do it that way. If not, then you can add the subsurf later. That's the nice thing about modifiers. You can always, turn it off so you can work a little bit easier with it, especially if it's, you got a lot of subdivisions to it. And I'm just going to do a Control-R and mouse wheel up. Add 2 edge cuts there. And it's really, you know, it's all, like I say, freestyle. You can make these engines whatever you want them to look like. So I'm just going to start by just doing a lot of extrusions and changes in the geometry and scale down and all that good stuff. You can scale down, scale inward. You can get really crazy with it. That does not look like an engine. Go back to full screen mode where I can see what I'm doing. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to scale the space down here just to give the look that this thing is kind of curving down a little bit like that. So that's a really basic kind of engine there. But like I say, you can come up with any design you want. Nice thing about Blender is you can sit there and, you know, test out what it might look like or what you think it should look like. I don't like the smoothness of this area. I think it should be more defined. So what you can do is do your Control-R cuts. Just kind of give that some definition. And if you're not used to doing this, you know, adding those loop cuts and everything, once you start to do it, I mean, you get used to it. So it's fairly easy once you understand what they're doing and how it works. So that gives it some more definition there. Looks a little bit nicer. You can do some crazy things like I turn off occlude here, go into face mode. And get my T menu. I'm just going to extrude individual. You can make something really, you know, kind of unique and strange looking. Say I wanted to extrude these individually, but I also wanted to break them apart. You can change your pivot center here and just move it to individual origins, extrude individual, and just select it and then do a scale. Scale them down. And then you can do just a regular E-extrude and start scaling them in. Again, a really kind of weird, unique design. It's almost looking like the back of the engine now instead of the front, so that's probably not too good, but it's different. And especially when you get into like putting materials on it, who knows, it could look pretty cool. But it's really, you know, what you have in your head and how you want it to look. So I'm going to change this back to median point, because if you don't, believe me, it'll cause you problems later on if you forget that. And I'm going to add some loop cuts in here. I want to put some seams in here. So I'm just going to go about, I don't want to use that right there. I'm going to bring it back here. Add another one. Let's make it pretty thin. Do the same thing back here. I'll probably go ahead and use that one. Go back to face mode. Alt select your faces and E-extrude, scale down. And I'm going to go ahead while I have this first part scaled, what I should have done with the other ones, and assign the flat black. Nope, no I'm not. Oh yes, I guess I am. Let me redo that because I screwed up my Yep, I did. I screwed it up. Anyway, let's give it the main body color and let's go back and redo that. Alt select, E-extrude, okay. Now I will add my flat black and assign it. And if you want, you can leave it as that, or what I usually do is just add another extrusion and make sure you assign that black as well. And you can see that gives it just a really nice defined cut there. And just going to do the exact same thing over here. Okay, let's grab the camera and GZZ just to pull it out a little bit. Oops. Move it up a little bit. Just see what we're doing here. So kind of neat looking, kind of weird, but different. Okay, so if you did what I did and you didn't mirror this right off, that's okay, because that gives me the opportunity to show you a nice little trick you can do if you need to mirror something that's already modeled and moved over to wherever you need it to be. And that is, see your 3D cursor here, a little red and white cursor. If it's not already in the center, do a 7. See my top view here. Do a Shift S and put cursor to grid, or I'm sorry, cursor to center. That'll realign your cursor there. And while your geometry is selected, actually you don't need it selected. What I'm going to do is do a Shift A and just create an empty and just make it like a plane axis. Empty is fine. And you can leave it that size or you can scale it down, it doesn't matter. But come over to your object information, and what I usually do is rename these in case you have more than one. And I'm going to name it empty underscore mirror. And I'm going to use this as a reference point to mirror this object. So selecting this, I am going to go to the modifiers and add the mirror modifier. And right off you can see it just mirrored it to where it thought the center of geometry is. But what you can do, which is nice, is you can put in a mirror object. And you can select that empty mirror you just created. And that tells it to use your empty that you created as the reference point of the center. So it's perfectly mirrored. Kind of nice. Okay, so I think the engines really need a lot more work, a lot more detail. So you can add pretty much all the detail that you want in there. One thing I will do is I don't really like the way this thing is sticking out like this. Turn occlude off there. Yeah, it looks a little bit nicer, I think. Another thing you can do to try to get your edge creases is you can do edge creases. Do a Shift E and pull your mouse out, and you'll notice that it will crease to the exact edge that's created regardless of the subdivision. So if you don't want that, you can do a Shift E and then use your mouse to scale it back down, or you can do Shift E -1, I believe it is. Yep, and hit enter. And I just did a little extrude to get some more definition around there. And actually I do want it around this inner edge, so I'm going to do a Control R and just select this geometry here. Just pull it in like that, so it's got some nice definition there. Back to face mode, select that. I don't want it to be that close to the outside. I'm just going to drag it in a little bit there. There we go. A little bit